All right, welcome to RealGM Radio. Wes Goldberg here, and on today's Monday monologue, I'm telling you why I'm picking the Thunder to win the NBA championship, or rather, sticking with my pick for the Thunder to win the championship. Let's jump in. All right, it's a Monday morning monologue here on RealGM Radio, and I want to start with what I saw from the Thunder in their win over the Nuggets on Sunday and what it means for the playoff picture. So quick little recap here. The Thunder going to halftime up 60-46 on the Nuggets. They ended the second quarter on an 18-4 run that lasted about 3 minutes. And in those 3 minutes, they recorded 3 steals. When we talk about defenses fueling offense, 29 teams in the league talk about it. One team actually does it, and that one team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They scored 9 straight points then to start the second half. That started on a gilgeous-alexander steal and dunk, so it was just steal and score, steal and score. The Nuggets couldn't even get into their offense. The Thunder go up 85-63 midway through the third quarter, and that's when we knew that this thing was over, and we all remember garbage time, fourth quarter. Denver Nuggets season comes to an end. The Thunder move on to the Western Conference Finals. That was a masterclass of Thunder basketball. They had 16 steals in the game. They scored 27 fast break points. They held the Nuggets to an offensive rating of 92.1 in that game. So the Thunder's defensive rating of 92.1, an absolute masterclass. And that brings me to my big takeaway of the weekend. What I saw from Oklahoma City in the third quarter of that game was what I saw from them all season. The Thunder have a gear that nobody else in the league can reach, and they reach their top gear more than anybody else has all season. We talked ourselves into the Celtics because we assumed that they weren't going all out this season. Championship hangover, knew that they needed to save it for the playoffs. Guys in and out of the lineup during the regular season. We still rarely saw them firing on all cylinders, and a lot less often than we saw the Thunder firing on all cylinders. So we talk ourselves into Celtics because we think, okay, they're sandbagging a little bit. When the playoffs come around, they'll take it more seriously. And then we saw what happened. Even despite the Jason Tatum injury, the Celtics were losing that series to the Knicks. They were down in that series because of a lot of different reasons, but they were clearly not the team that they were last year, and whether they were playing with their food or not taking the Knicks seriously enough or whatever it was, they had a harder time reaching their top gear when they needed it more than the Thunder did. The Thunder have the easiest time in the league of hitting that gear, which we'll talk about more in a second. We talked ourselves into teams like the Lakers and the Warriors because of their star power, but they also had some of the lowest floors of any of the contending teams that we were talking about. We talked ourselves into the Denver Nuggets because of their experience, Nikola Jokic, and what would happen if Jamal Murray could string together good games at a level that, frankly, we have not seen from him in 2 full seasons. And going forward, we might even talk ourselves into the Timberwolves because of how good they can be when they crank up their defense. And Anthony Edwards, when he takes things up to that superstar stratosphere that he can touch in a way that few others can. But we also know that the Timberwolves are inconsistent. They can turn the ball over too much. They play with their food a little bit. And Ant, frankly, doesn't always bring it at that level. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was the league's most consistent scorer. It's why he's probably going to win MVP. The Thunder had by far the league's best defense this season. Their defensive rating is even better during the playoffs. They average double-digit steals per game in the regular season, and they're doing it again in the postseason. They are big, physical, and can make it difficult just to get into your offensive sets, let alone score. They break games open with runs not powered by variance of three-point shooting, but by the dependability of their defense. And that's the key here. All they have to do is crank it up. Go to a full court press with some of their best defensive lineups and then just start turning steals into easy buckets in transition. And they could swing a game in a matter of minutes, and they uncork one of those defensive runs in seemingly every game. And they can do that because that's a controllable. Let's put our best defensive 5 out there. Let's go to a full court press. Let's dial up the aggression for 3 to 5 minutes, and we can win this game. And that's how the Thunder piled up wins in the regular season. And their ability to go on runs is so much different than basically every other team in the league, because all these other teams depend on the three-point shot for their runs. You hit a couple in a row, hit 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6 or 7, and all of a sudden, what was a single-digit game turns into a double-digit lead, And those are the kinds of cushions that in the regular season that you can carry all the way to the end of the game and win a game that way. The Thunder, they rely on three-point shooting, sure, because everybody does, but not as much as every other team. Because they don't need the three-point shot to power their runs. Their runs aren't fueled by the three-point shot. Their runs are literally fueled by their defense. 29 teams talk about their defense fueling offense. Only one of them does it at the level of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they can just crank it up and decide, hey, for 2 or 3 minutes, we're going to put our head down and we're never going to let this other team score. We're not even going to let them bring it up half court. We're not even going to let them get into their main triggers of their offense. We're going to mess everything up from their inbound until we end up with that ball and we're scoring on the other end. And it's because of their ability to crank it up to that level. And they did that more often than any other team in the regular season. I use the word terrifying all the time to talk about this Thunder team because they've got 6, 7, 8 guys who can do it in their lineup, who could just turn a game with their defense and score on the other end. And it's why I picked the Thunder over the Celtics in the NBA Finals to start the playoffs. Now, obviously, my finals pick is not going to work out because the Celtics aren't in anymore, but I feel still very good about my winner. The Thunder have been the best team in the NBA all season long. They are the best team remaining in these playoffs. And one thing that I feel pretty good about in terms of the NBA, the best team tends to win, or one of the best teams tends to win. And it's not to say that the Pacers, the Knicks, or the Timberwolves can't win, but I feel really good about my Thunder pick. Quick thoughts on Minnesota OKC. So season series tied 2-2. The total scoring margin really close. Oklahoma City actually lost the season series by 3 points total. The Thunder shot 35.6% on threes in their games against Minnesota. Minnesota actually shot worse, 33.5% on threes. So 3-point shooting was pretty close. Neither team really got hot in their series. Maybe that changes in these playoffs, but you can't really look at 3-point shooting as a reason for that 2-2 record. Now, there were some injuries. Guys missing. Chet missed 2 games of the 4. Julius Randle missed 3 of the 4. Rudy Gobert missed 3 of the 4. So the Timberwolves have seen something closer to full-strength Thunder more than the Thunder have seen full-strength Timberwolves in their regular season meetings. I think both of these teams are playing their best basketball of the season right now. I think what we saw from the Thunder against the Denver Nuggets was a team that matured in front of our eyes. They had a hard time in some of those early close games in that series against Nikola Jokic and that decision-making and crunch time and all that stuff as a young team. That's stuff that we were a little worried about going into the playoffs. They overcame that in a very big way in Game 7. It feels like that's the kind of thing that a young team like the Thunder needs to get over the hump. They didn't do it last year in the second round against Dallas, and they lost to the better player in Luka Doncic. Jokic was, I thought, the best player in that series up until Game 7. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, amazing Game 7 performance. Best player on the court. Alex Caruso was the second most impactful player on the court. But it felt like they needed that to hit this next level. I think there's a confidence that they're going to be playing with against Minnesota that I don't know that they had going into that Denver series, even if they would tell you otherwise. I think winning a series like that really means something for a young team like the Thunder. So we saw them kind of get over that hurdle, and I think that's going to mean a lot to them in terms of their maturity as a basketball team. And for that reason, I think they're playing their best basketball of the season right now, even if they just did take that series against a lower seed to 7 games. And then Minnesota clearly playing the best basketball of their season. A lot, mostly tied to the play of Julius Randle, who's just been awesome. Completely flipped the narrative on playoff Julius Randle. That means something completely different now in Minnesota than it used to in New York, but he's been awesome. And going back to the season series, it was a weird season series. They played the 4 games. Crazy part, 3 of those 4 games were played in a 9-game span between February 13th and February 24th. One of them was on a back-to-back. Last 2 really close. Last one was an overtime game. So this had been close all year, which I think is going to set up for a really interesting Western Conference Finals. Diving into some of the matchups, a couple of things that I just have my eye on. I think Lou Dort takes Anthony Edwards' assignment off the bat, right off the tip. It'll be Dort on Ant. You're going to see some Cason Wallace. You'll see some Alex Caruso, obviously, on Anthony Edwards as both teams get into their rotations. It'll be Dort on Ant to start the game. I think it'll be McDaniels on Shea from Minnesota. tried some different things during the season. Again, some of it was because guys were out. In the last game, they actually had Jalen Clark, the rookie, guarding SGA quite a bit, and he didn't do a bad job. Like, he was pretty good. I don't know that there's going to be room for him in these Western Conference Finals. I would hope there wouldn't be for Minnesota, that you're not relying on a rookie there. But they got options. Obviously, they can go Ant there, but I think they'll start McDaniels on SGA, and they might try not to switch it. I think they're going to try not to switch it as much as they can, because we know what Shea is going to try to do. Those small pick and roll actions. They're going to target Mike Conley. Who's Mike Conley guarding? If Minnesota can have it their way, I think they would have Conley guarding Lou Dort. But if you're going to have that cross match of Dort and Anthony Edwards, it could be Ant against Dort in those cross matches. And if that's the case, then maybe you just switch it and you're a little okay, we end up with Ant on Shea. We feel pretty good about that. That won't be a problem. So if you end up there, they'll switch it. If it's Conley on Dort, I think they'll try to fight the switch as much as they can, and funnel Shea into Rudy Gobert, who, again, missed 3 of these games during the regular season, which feels like it's a very important thing. So you've got that. And then my big X factor, or my big question, I guess is the better way to put it, who guards Julius Randle? Because he missed 3 of these games during the series. And in the one game that Julius Randle did play, Chet was out with that early season injury. So we haven't seen Minnesota's front court of Gobert and Randle against Oklahoma City's front court of Chet and Hartenstein. So this will be the first time we see both healthy front courts going up against each other when game 1 tips off. So it's either going to be Chet or Holmgren on Julius Randle. I think it's really interesting. If you want to play it straight up, Holmgren on Rudy Gobert, Chet on Julius Randle. But we just saw what Julius Randle can do. His combination of power and agility is just unmatched by so many players. Even Draymond Green had a hard time defending him. If he's barreling through Draymond Green, who's one of the strongest guys in the league, I don't know if Chet stands much of a chance standing in front of Julius Randle. Now, he's long. He can crowd him. He can kind of put an umbrella over him. But Julius Randle could just put a shoulder in him. And the way that these playoffs have been officiated, they'll probably let him put a shoulder into him and just knock him out of the way. So do the Thunder go... Do they play it differently and actually have Hartenstein on Julius Randle to try to cut off his driving lanes, and then live with Holmgren on Rudy Gobert and just hope that Gobert doesn't totally push Holmgren out of the way for rebounds, really focus on gang rebounding in this series. And then that, Julius, it's not like Rudy Gobert is the most adept post player, I guess is a nice way to put it. So, he could overpower Holmgren, but can Holmgren just stand in front of him enough? And by the time Rudy Gobert makes any moves, Hartenstein can kind of take a couple steps in and help out or whatever it might be. So it'll be interesting to see how the Thunder guard Julius Randle. And if Julius Randle is playing like he's played all playoffs, that could be something that swings this series. But for the most part, I still feel really good about Oklahoma City just because of their ability to crank it up defensively in a way that nobody else can. Minnesota had a really bad time with turnovers against the Warriors, and a lot of them were unforced. And if they had a hard time holding onto the ball against the Warriors, good luck against this Thunder team. We'll be back later this week with guests and reactions to both game 1s in the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference Finals. Thanks for tuning in to Real GM Radio.